The world as you knew it changed this week. On the quiet nights of September 9th and 10th, 2025, the war in Ukraine spilled over its borders in the most terrifying way imaginable. Russian drones, not just one or two, but a swarm of them, deliberately violated the sovereign airspace of Poland. This wasn't some accident or a navigational error. This was a calculated provocation, a direct assault on a NATO member state. For the first time since the North Atlantic Treaty was signed, its defenses were triggered by a hostile act from Russia. Polish officials called it absolutely reckless and absolutely dangerous, but honestly, that's an understatement. This was Russia testing the West, pushing us, daring us to respond. It was a moment that brought us closer to open conflict than at any point since the Second World War. The response was immediate. As between 19 and 23 Russian drones buzzed into Polish territory, NATO's quick reaction alert system roared to life. This is the shield we've been told for decades would protect us. Polish Air Force jets, alongside allied NATO fighters, scrambled into the sky. They didn't hesitate. They engaged the enemy. They shot down multiple Russian drones, defending not just Poland, but the entire alliance. Think about what that means. For the very first time, NATO forces were directly engaged in kinetic action against the Russian military. This wasn't a proxy war anymore. As the world's leaders scrambled for answers, the United States made its position clear. The White House reaffirmed America's ironclad commitment to its allies. The official statement promised the United States would defend every inch of NATO territory. This promise has underpinned global security for over 75 years. It was a vital reassurance to partners on the front lines in Eastern Europe. Behind the scenes, a tougher conversation was happening. President Donald Trump saw this as a moment of truth for an alliance he's criticized as weak. His response was swift and shocked the global establishment. On Saturday, he issued a blunt ultimatum to NATO. He said the U.S. would only impose major new sanctions after Europe agreed to do the same. And crucially, Europe must stop buying Russian oil. For years, European nations, especially Germany, funded Putin by purchasing his energy. Trump put them on notice. His message: if you want America's full economic might, you must do your part. No more free rides, no more lectures while you pay the dictator. He also took aim at the power behind the throne, China. He demanded NATO impose massive tariffs on Chinese goods, 50 to 100%. Why? Because China's economic support keeps Russia's war effort afloat. China buys Russia's oil. China sells components for their weapons. China provides diplomatic cover on the world stage. Trump argued these tariffs would break that grip. It was a bold, two-front economic strategy to cripple the Russia-China axis. He warned Brussels, you can't fight a fire while ignoring the arsonist. His closing words left no room for interpretation. If NATO does as I say, he tweeted, the war will end quickly and all of those lives will be saved. If not, you are just wasting my time. This is the Trump doctrine. Transactional, America first, polarizing but resonant. Either NATO becomes the unified alliance it was meant to be, or it risks irrelevance as American support withdraws. The ball is now in Europe's court. With President Trump's ultimatum hanging in the air, NATO's military commanders wasted no time bolstering the alliance's physical defenses. You can talk all you want in Brussels, but on the border with Russia, action is the only language that matters. In response to the blatant Russian aggression, NATO's Secretary General announced the immediate launch of a new, reinforced mission. It's called Operation Eastern Sentry. Its purpose is singular and clear: to build a wall of steel along Europe's eastern flank and send an unmistakable message to Moscow that any further encroachment will be met with overwhelming force. This is the largest reinforcement of the border in a generation. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. Operation Eastern Sentry involves a significant deployment of real military hardware and personnel from some of NATO's most powerful members. The mission is designed to show a united front, proving that an attack on Poland is treated as an attack on all. Denmark has already committed 2 F-16 fighter jets. France is sending 3 of its advanced Rafale jets. Germany is deploying 4 Eurofighter Typhoons. The United Kingdom is also contributing forces. These are not training exercises. These are active combat patrols, ready to respond at a moment's notice. The goal of Eastern Sentry is to create a layered air defense network so dense and so formidable that no Russian drone missile or aircraft could ever again violate NATO airspace without being immediately intercepted and destroyed. The operation serves as a visible deterrent, a constant reminder to the Kremlin of the military power it faces. For the people of Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, the sight of Allied jets in their skies is a profound reassurance. It is the physical manifestation of the Article 5 promise. It tells them they are not alone. It's what Americans have paid for decades. A shield to protect our allies and our interests. But let's be clear. This operation, while necessary, also raises the stakes dramatically. With more NATO and Russian forces operating in such close proximity, the risk of miscalculation or accidental escalation skyrockets. We are now in a state of constant high-stakes military tension along a new Iron Curtain. Back in Washington, the drone attack lit a fire under Congress. Republicans in particular are demanding a much stronger response than just military posturing. Key senators are publicly urging President Trump to greenlight a vote on a massive new Russia sanctions package that has been waiting in the wings. Senator Lindsey Graham, a leading voice on national security, wrote an open letter to the president. Mr. President, Congress is with you. We stand ready to pass legislation authorizing bone-crushing new sanctions and tariffs. There is a rare consensus building in Washington. Russia has gone too far, and it's time to make them pay a price they cannot afford. The push for economic warfare is gaining serious momentum. The Treasury Secretary has echoed the president's calls, urging our G7 partners to finally get serious. The proposals on the table are severe. They include slapping heavy tariffs on any country that continues to buy Russian oil, effectively creating a secondary boycott. More creatively, officials are now seriously exploring plans to seize the hundreds of billions of dollars in Russian government assets that were frozen at the start of the war, and use that money to fund Ukraine's defense and reconstruction. The idea is simple. Make Russia pay for the very destruction it has caused. But all of this talk of sanctions and military buildups is forcing a deeply uncomfortable conversation here at home. For the first time in a long time, the words World War III are being said not by fringe elements, but by serious people in positions of power. The direct engagement between NATO and Russian forces, even on a small scale, has opened a Pandora's box. If this escalates, if Russia retaliates against NATO forces, we are on a path to a general European war. And if that happens, it is naive to think America can stay out of it. It would be a war that a generation of Americans, raised in relative peace, is completely unprepared for. And that leads to the darkest question of all, the one nobody in Washington wants to answer directly. The draft. If we are drawn into a major conflict with a peer adversary like Russia, and potentially China, our current all-volunteer military may not be large enough. Quietly, in the halls of the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill, discussions are happening about military readiness and manpower. They are dusting off contingency plans. No one is calling for it yet, but the possibility of military conscription is no longer unthinkable. The events in Poland this week were not a distant foreign policy issue. They were a direct threat that could change your life and the lives of your children forever.